spring football right around the corner. What's the intel that you would like to see if you're a Nebraska fan when you go over to Husker Online, the Nebraska On 3 site? Whenever you go through the Red Sea scroll, the message board over there for Husker Online, what's the intel that you want to unpack? I'll tell you what intel we want to unpack, and we'll do it right now. But before we do that, make sure you are subscribed to the On 3 YouTube channel. Nebraska fans, y'all been good to us. Thank you for that. If you haven't yet subscribed, no time like the present, go ahead and dial it in. We're talking college football year-round and talking about your Huskers a fair amount as well. The number one piece of intel that I want to find on the message board when I go over to Husker Online, or just anyone with a microphone in their hand that watches practice or that takes the podium for Nebraska in a post-practice press conference, this is Dylan Raiola's team. We go as he goes. He's the leader. He's QB1. Like that's our guy. We follow 15. And that sounds sort of obvious, but the reason why I feel that way is that's what you brought Dylan Raiola to do at Nebraska. You brought him here to be a team that can go compete for the Big Ten championship and make the college football playoff. Last year was last year, ups and downs. There is no more, oh, well, he's a true freshman. There is no more, well, we just got to find a way to be better around him and win ugly. Dylan Raiola, I thought, played valiantly at different points last season for Nebraska. He's got to level up in 2025. Like, you don't have the same defense coming back from a season ago. Like last year, Nebraska was, I believe, top 5 in returning production. Had a ton of dudes back on defense. It's not the same way. You have to be quarterback driven, I believe, in the Big Ten to have a chance to win the conference and ultimately to make the playoff. When Dana Holgorsen got the OC reins, we said it already in the show, but I'll say it again, you saw a different Dylan Raiola. I want to see that continued maturation and progress and success, and that's ultimately, I think, what's going to be the biggest difference for Nebraska. Again, great teams don't win in spite of their quarterback, and Dylan Raiola came to be that quarterback that they won because of in Lincoln. Also, in tandem with that, I want to hear about the juice of the weapons for Nebraska. Last year, 6.6 yards a pass. Y'all, that ain't good enough. That ain't what you're selling out the stadium for. That ain't what you're showing up for every single Saturday. 6.6 yards a pass, 109th in college football. The teams that competed at the highest level last year in the Big Ten, Oregon, Ohio State, Penn State, Indiana, teams that made the playoff, all 4 of those teams were top 20 in America in yards per pass. 3 of them were top 10. Translation, Dane Key, let's go, baby. Brought you here for a reason. Get them chopping, all right? Run fast, run straight. Maybe a little 45-degree angle if we want you on a post. Like we got to have some vertical shot presence here if we're Nebraska. That obviously starts in that wide receiver room. And I mentioned Dane Key. That's the guy I want to hear about. That's the guy that I want to hear is the difference maker in that room. Because if you expect a lot from Dylan Raiola, that's great. He's got to elevate the room for sure. But your expectations with Dylan Raiola, I think, should very much so be tied to what you're getting in the receiver room. If the receiver room is back at 6.6 yards a pass, that's the level they're playing at, then it's hard for me to tell Dylan Raiola I need more from him. See where I'm going with this? Last thing here, the culture around Nebraska, I want to hear how much of it resembles like a Matt Rhule year 3 team. That sounds funny to say because by definition they're in their 3rd year under Matt Rhule. This is very much so a vibes kind of thing. So this is where you have to really scroll the message boards and tap in with a Steven Sipple and a Sean Callahan to get all the intel. But for me personally, for those of y'all that know, I was on Matt Rhule's year 3 Baylor team. I was in that locker room. And I believe our preseason win total was somewhere around like 7.5. I think we had just won a bowl game. I transferred in as a graduate. But y'all being within that building, going out to practice, doing the workouts with Corey Campbell, who's the head strength coach at Nebraska right now. Like you couldn't convince me we weren't going to be one of the best teams in the conference. And some of that's a confidence thing. Some of that is from, the staff and how they carry themselves. A lot of it was just how we had worked throughout the course of that summer. And again, that sounds super cliche. I totally get that. But there was this feeling for me of the way that we do things, the discipline, the detail, the way that everyone's running hot. I mean, if you false started on a sprint for the whistle, like it was not a good vibe. Not with the coaching staff. It was a bad vibe in that locker room. The way that everyone was just running hot, that culture is something that I think you can feel when you walk in the building, whether you're media or not. I'm really curious to see what those comments are around the building in Lincoln. Because Matt Rhule, we talked to him a year ago, and I asked him the biggest difference from year 1 to year 2. He said, the biggest difference for us is it's no longer Coach Rhule's way. It's the team's way. and you do that for a year, that's nice. Do that for 2 years, though, I think that's where you start to see some real success. And I think that's what Nebraska can expect in 2025. I'm not trying to give you some hopium or try and pitch you on this pipe dream of Nebraska being a playoff team, but you look at the schedule, look at who they don't play, look at what they have in front of them here with Matt Rhule's work always being in his third year. I see it with Nebraska, man. And I want to hear it from spring practice around Dylan Raiola, around the weapons, and around the culture vibrating at a certain temperature because it's what you expect. And it's what you expected when you brought Matt Rhule in to be your head coach. It's almost here, man. It is almost here. Spring football around the corner. And I know a lot of spring games are being canceled. We've asked coaches to just say no to poaching in the spring. Do it in the fall. We're fine with that. But in the spring, just let us have spring games. We will have a few, and we will react to those accordingly. And whichever games are not televised, we'll tap in with our phenomenal network here at On3 and get all the intel for you, and we'll talk about it as well.